Good morning and welcome to the Zoom service of UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. UUCC is a congregation that fosters personal and spiritual growth through religious exploration in search of the truth while celebrating diversity and affirming the worth and dignity of every person. We are glad that you are joining us. I am Danielle Lyon, one of your worship coordinators, and this is Thomas Lyon, our other worship coordinator. Our speakers today are from Vale's Soul Matters group: Val Doyle, Pat Harris, Jeffrey and Dorothy Hoskins, Kit Croucher, and Jeannie Smith. For those of you who aren't familiar, Soul Matters groups allow small groups of members to join together and further their personal, religious, and spiritual self-searching, and also build stronger communities with smaller groups of people in the congregation. And if that's something you think that you'd be interested in, let Reverend Eileen know as we're starting this new church year. Just one announcement for this week. Next Sunday, September 12th, will be an in-person outdoor service for our annual water communion. Please bring along a vessel of water to pour it in combined with the others, whether it's from a special place at or away from your home. The service will be outdoors and masked. Now we will enter a space of worship.
Right. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Hi, I'm Pat Harris, part of that group that's doing the presentation today, and I want to do our opening words. Because our title is Summer Vacation, I'll never forget, I want to start with a classic poem on summer. It's called Bed in Summer, and it's by Robert Louis Stevenson. And you might know it from your childhood because some of us who are older sometimes had to memorize poems. Hi, I'm Pat Harris, part of that group that's doing the presentation today, and I want to do our opening words. Because our title is Summer Vacation, I'll never forget, I want to start with a classic poem on summer. It's called Bed in Summer, and it's by Robert Louis Stevenson. And you might know it from your childhood because some of us who are older sometimes had to memorize. Getting feedback somehow. I'm not quite sure. This has not happened before. Delayed feedback, but let me just try this poem again. Bed in Summer. In winter, I get up at night and dress by yellow candlelight. In summer, quite the other way, I'll have to go to bed by day. I have to go to bed and see the birds still hopping on the tree, or hear the grown-up people's feet still going past me in the street. And does it not seem hard to you when all the sky is clear and blue, and I should like to play, to have to go to bed by day? And now I want to share two short comments about vacations. The first is from Betty Williams. When all else fails, take a vacation. And the second one is from Robert Orban. A vacation is having nothing to do and all day to do it in. Well, these are interesting comments on vacations and certainly a child's perspective on summer. I love summer. I guess I'm a warm weather person. Or this year, a hot weather person. I love early mornings in the summer when the sun comes up at an unreasonable hour and goes down late enough that I have a little light from outside when I go to bed. I remember getting up at 4 o'clock one summer morning to drive to the ocean to be there when the sun rose. The three people who went with me were grouchy the whole drive. but they went because I said it would be a great experience for us to share, and it was my turn to choose the events for that particular day. And guess what? It was a nearly perfect summer sunrise. I also love to travel, although I seem to do most of my traveling in our own country in Canada. And for me, the words of Orban ring true, having nothing to do and all day to do it in. That seems to be frequently my vacation plan. I have traveled to see special people, enjoy history, soak up natural wonders, and explore a destination. And I've even had a vacation to Disney World. But sometimes I just like to set out on a vacation trip without a plan to do anything, just to have time to have nothing to do. I think these times are when Betty Williams' words come true for me. When all else fails, take a vacation. When stress is up, when I'm having a hard time making decisions, when I'm pondering one of life's difficult questions, then I really need a do-nothing vacation. This was especially true when I was working. And when I was younger and getting out of school for the summer, and I even did that as an adult when I was a teacher, being free for much of the day to do what I wanted to do was a true summer vacation. I'm retired now, and sometimes I think life is almost one long summer vacation for me, even in the winter. But I still travel, and I still make days to do just what comes along. And I think this is one reason I come to church, to see people, enjoy history, soak up natural wonders, and explore destinations. Maybe ones of the mind more than places. Our first song is For All That Is Our Life.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and our pain. Please share your joys and sorrows in the chat box in Zoom, and know whatever is on your heart, we are with you.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all people living for today. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. Wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
For the joys and sorrows shared and those held in our heart, know we are with you. I'd like to especially recall a few things shared in Zoom. Visit with grandkids and family. Hope for rain for those affected in California and the Lake Tahoe area. Less rain and recovery for those affected by the hurricane and torrential downpours. Having to put a beloved pet to sleep. Family suffering from COVID. Visiting friends. Kids returning back to school, and the joy of glorious nothing. For all these held close, we hold these and all these big feelings in our heart.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support our church in its work. That work is summarized in our covenant. The covenant for UUCC says, in service of the values that unite us, we will recognize the inherent value of each person, foster a community of compassion and caring for all, value our diverse opinions, and engage respectfully in all interactions. If you would like to give to this morning's offering, you can give online at canandaiguauu.org/connect or physically by mailing a check to the church. In either case, note if you'd like your gift to go toward the Sunday offering or your pledge. We'll share 25% of the Sunday offering with our monthly service partner. The designated offering recipient chosen by Team 6 for the homecoming season is Keeping Our Promise, an organization with a mission to provide comprehensive resettlement assistance to endangered wartime allies who served U.S. interests in conflict and in war zones.
Now is the time in our service for us to enter into a quiet time of meditation. Please get comfortable and let your mind settle as I share a few words with you. The meditation that I want to share with you is on Letting Go by Carol Oldman Morton, found on the UU site. Many of us carry a burden of worry, anxiety over the state of the world, worries about money, about our environment, our families, about peace and justice. May we trust that nothing will get worse for us putting that burden down for a moment. May we let go of what weighs us down. May we find that we can set down worry for longer and longer periods of time. In our experience of letting go, may we be open to the possibility that we need not pick up all of those worries back. May we find passion and strength to work for change where we have the power to do so, and to let go where we do not. If not forever, let us put down any worries or anxiety for a time of quiet. Well, maybe this experience, she suggests, is a little like taking a vacation when one is really needed. May we be in quiet together.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Whose hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
A summer vacation I will never forget. All of us have kind of worked together and thought about vacations we would remember. You'll see that we have Jeannie, Val, Jeff, Dorothy, me, Pat, and Kit. All of us working together. It doesn't seem to make any difference whether a vacation comes plane, train, walking, bus, car, whatever. But the important thing to know about vacations is that they happen for us. And one of the things that happens with vacations is that they may be well planned in advance. And so we have a lot of things happening. But sometimes vacations are important to us. Oh dear. Now it went away. I hit my mouse. Give me some time here, just a minute. Well, Pat, for the one who's supposedly running this thing, I made a mess, didn't I? Let me just get the PowerPoint open again. Just proves you shouldn't have a mouse when you're doing a PowerPoint. So, with that, I'm not going to say any more words. I'm just going to start our PowerPoint. And we'll start with Jeannie.
Good morning, everyone. I visited California and Oregon in 2001. The redwoods were the highlight of the trip. I will never forget this trip because it was such a privilege to view these ancient trees. I had never seen the Pacific Ocean either. Part of the trip entailed driving Route 1 along the coast up into Oregon. The mists and the vapor from the ocean helps these trees survive. Due to their lifespan and immense size, these old-growth coastal redwoods and giant sequoias store more carbon per acre than any other forest type in the world. Second-growth redwood forests also perform well to reduce greenhouse gases. This area of California is home to so much wildlife: mountain lions, California condors, coho salmon, eagles, and so much more. Next slide. This map shows the main locations of the redwoods and sequoias in California. After I visited Oregon, I circled back south to the Napa Valley and then visited the Sequoia Range. This chart shows some of the differences between the two trees. These trees are around 3,000 years old. California is home to the vast majority of the Earth's redwoods. The photo on the right is the stag tree. It's the 5th largest tree in the world. It's a sequoia. It's 25 feet wide, 250 feet tall, thousands of years old. The redwoods have had 200 million years of evolution. They are so old and so tolerant. They give back so much to us. They give us this tremendous connection to all that has come before us. We need to protect them for all that will come after us. Thank you.
I'm up. The summer vacation I will never forget is our trip to Nova Scotia. I'll never forget this trip. Well, my children were involved. This is my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, and their nieces and my kids are off playing. But that's a fishing shack, and if you know, you've been on the coast, you know, so those are lobster traps in the back. But it's the kids that made us go, I think, on the trip. Pat, could we go down to the kids' pictures? Come back to that one later. Okay, these are my boys and my girls. And as Pat said, are you sure those are your boys? It was the 70s, folks. Dashikis were in. And the picture below that shows the children a few years younger. When they wore the dresses that Grandma sent them for Christmas, and they went to the barbers and got haircuts. And as you saw by the previous pictures, in 3 years, things changed a lot. And this is what we had begun to hear, folks. Whoa, can I get that up close enough or not? I have a poster that says, "We never go anywhere." We started hearing that from our children a lot once they went to school and found other kids, went other places on vacations, and not just with family or two families' homes. So my brother-in-law had a friend whose family had a fishing shack in Nova Scotia. And we were invited to come up there and spend a few days at the, at the fishing place, and maybe even go out on their fishing boat. We were campers. We had our camping gear. We took off, went through New England, went up the coast. Oh, the campers, yes. We didn't have a camper. That's my brother-in-law's Westphalia. With all the they only had one child. We had our four in our Volkswagen bus. The people we were visiting had their little Beetle, so it looked very much like a Volkswagen sales lot. But we had a wonderful way to travel if you have kids. You can see some of the vintages of the cars in the background. So off we went. My kids had not seen the ocean before. It was neither had I. We went up through New England. It was a wonderful trip. Kids did pretty well camping. First night in a lean-to. Well, we didn't know what a lean-to is, but a lean-to is a ramp or a ramp, I guess, a sort of ledge up, a bed up, and then covered, but open on one side for the night. So no, my daughter was convinced bears would eat us, but they didn't. So off we went, and after several days, we finally were piped into Nova Scotia, went up to Cape Breton and Ingonish. Now the first one, Pat. Oh, now, one of my things is to remember, folks, if someone invites you to their place and they say, "We have a wonderful roomy fishing shack," pay close attention to that last word. Most of the place we stayed at isn't in this picture. It was really a boathouse with an attic. Now we were promised bunk beds, or that was said that that's where the sailors slept, in the bunk beds. And they were bunk beds in that they were one on top of the other, but the other way they were bunk beds was not with the mattress. They were no mattresses, but we'd been sleeping on the ground, so we adjusted. And, they had a kitchen. I can't remember whether we had electricity, probably gas or kerosene lanterns at night, but there was a kitchen and it had running water and a stove of some type, and one big long mess hall type of room, and another big room where we thought we would do dancing and play, and the kids did do that at night. Now, if you're wondering, I've talked about bedrooms, I've talked about the big room, talked about the kitchen. I might have left out one room because it did not exist. There was no bathroom. So thinking back, if you've been listening carefully, my brother had a Westphalia, which had a chemical toilet in it, which we brought upstairs and we used. So the 12, I don't know how many there was, 10, 11, 12 people there. We did have a good time. And the kids did get to go out and go fishing with the fishermen. We did not get lobsters. We went jigging for cod. If any of you have ever fished in the ocean and caught codfish, that you have to keep the line moving. That's what attracts the cods. And for about one season after our trip, 3 of our children actually would eat fish other than fish sticks on Friday night and love cream and cod because that's what we'd had on our vacation. The oldest daughter was leaning towards being a vegetarian. She said cutting up those fish definitely changed her mind forever. So that was when she changed. So vacations can change you. You should have fun. And why it's the one that I will never forget, neither me nor my friends or in the family, and a lot of our friends too, because I tried to leave in my back corner the 5 photo albums. My husband, as you notice, wasn't in any of these photos because he was taking them all. He took 5 photo albums, which in those days was a lot. And if any of the children ever said those words again, we never go anywhere. Out came the photo albums. And after a while, it was, oh, you only had to have 1 album and everybody would scatter. But it made for a good family story. And I think that's what vacations are, really. Times to get your family stories, to laugh together. And that always brought a laugh to whoever was around. So enjoy your family while they're young and enjoy your vacations, because I liked what one of the philosophers said. We all need a vacation when we need a change of pace. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
So our vacation trip to Greece in 2017 was particularly memorable because, well, we kind of sort of realized this was probably the last chance we would ever have to travel as a family. The next slide shows Dana on the left, who's just finished his degree and was looking around for what to do with his newly minted credentials. Matt and Whitney had been in Albuquerque for about a year. Matt is our second son. He's in the center there. And while we were in Greece, they actually bought a house, which I thought was quite remarkable, but they pulled it off. This is in Kanya, Old Town, which is a city on the northern part of Crete. There are many small towns and narrow streets, and they found a cat to love. The next slide, you see a day trip to an arboretum. While we were there, I saw these trees and wondered what tree could grow on the top of a mountain and was valuable enough to be cultivated in that manner. And of course, the answer is olive trees. In Crete, everyone was very proud of their olives, and we would often at a B&B be shown a little vial of olive oils and told this was from our region or this was from our family farm. You can have some. The next slide shows us up in the mountains of Crete, looking down the valley with the ocean below. The fellow on the left was a story we ran into quite often. It was a fellow that he had a job at the airport in Kanya, but had lost it when the economy in Greece tanked, and now was trying to eke out a living running his family farm as a tourist destination. We'd climbed up to this area of the family farm to pick cherries, and our harvest is there on the table to the right. The flat area where we are standing is in front of a little shack, just a hovel, just a shelter from the elements. I remember there being perhaps a sleeping platform in it, but that was about it. And this fellow told a story of himself coming up here with his grandfather as a child on the back of a donkey to tend the olive trees and the cherry trees on this part of the family farm. And I couldn't help wondering if some of the adventures we had on this trip might turn into memories that stayed with our kids into their adulthood. And this is picking cherries. The next slide shows us in Delphi. I'm walking up in the ruins of Delphi with Dana. It's early morning, quiet, a beautiful day before the tourists, and having a very interesting conversation regarding his recent past and his plans for the future. You can see that this is on a very steep mountainside, which was rather puzzling because these building stones for Delphi had to come from somewhere, and there was no easy solution obvious. Driving in that area was absolutely hair-raising, but it did provide a nice place to have lunch there, sitting at a table overlooking the valley down to the ocean. I remember that lunch particularly because I think that was about the only place in Greece where I had a glass of really good red wine. Wine tasting in Crete was a lot of fun. Every little restaurant had a house wine or two that they brought out in a carafe. They were all locally produced and they were all different. In this picture, Matt and Whitney are notably absent. While we were in Delphi was the anniversary of their wedding, and we put them up in a B&B separate from ourselves, and they weren't up yet at this point. It turns out the B&B where they stayed was run by a potter. And this guy had developed a technique and the materials used by the ancient Greeks to decorate pots. He was very serious about it. He'd consulted with experts in the field. And at this point, he was doing construction and odd jobs again. He couldn't support himself as a potter, but he hoped to sometime in the future go back to producing pots, running workshops and seminars on ancient Greek pottery decoration. And that is our memorable trip to Greece in 5 minutes.
So you get to hear it from two different points of view. I was the organizer for this trip. And it started years ago. I grew up in Florida where it was hot and sunny and flat. And I always enjoyed going on summer vacations with the family to the Blue Ridge Mountains, where we could actually get up high enough to see a long vista, which just thrilled me. That was something I thought was so amazing, to be up high and look out over the countryside. Many years later, I wound up working for a Greek company. Well, it was founded by Greeks, but headquartered in Santa Clara. And I thought, well, this would be my opportunity to have a vacation in Greece, and I could even work there part of the time when we were there. So next slide. You can see that the Airbnb experience could be quite unique. The colorful place on the that we were staying there was very homey inside. We had lovely home cooked meals, and from their area there, you could see, as Jeffrey was showing you from the orchards, you could stand there and see all the way across the high mountains in Crete down to the far horizon where there's the Mediterranean Sea. This was amazing to me. When you hear about Greece, you think of the beaches and the towns and the white whitewashed buildings in Mykonos and other places, but the interior of Crete is rugged, mountainous territory and stunningly beautiful. Next, please. From there, I had set the itinerary that we would go around to Knossos. That should be what it says there, Knossos, which is the ancient Minoan temple area, which dates back to the Bronze Age. And there were some controversial restorations that had been done to it to reinvigorate the painting inside the buildings. And this was just astonishing to me, to look at the liveliness of these wall paintings in these interiors, and to look out across the whole complex and try to visualize this gigantic palace where people had come to make their case to the Minoan king and go up and down the hillside there. Next, this is Nafplio. We went to Nafplio, which is about an hour northwest from Athens, which was told to us to be one of the most beautiful cities in Greece. And it's on a bay, which and on a peninsula, which had been contested by so many different cultures that at different times it had actually been in the property of the Byzantines, the Turks, the Venetians, they all had the Ottoman Empire, everybody had their time of controlling this astonishing view over this bay. So it was a high vista with a commanding view over the bay where people would try to defend this territory from all the different invasions that came at them from the sea. Amazing place. Yep. Go back to Delphi, please. Okay. As Jeffrey mentioned, Delphi was a very amazing location to us. If you stood there along the wall near the place where we had dinner and looked down the valley from Delphi, you could see way, way out there on the horizon is another bay. And that is one of the possible ways. I didn't really look into it too much, but they might have brought all those amazing stones up from there by bringing them on a ship and then bringing them up the mountainside. Or they might have come from another mining area on another mountain nearby where they would have brought them over the ridge of the mountain. But can you imagine what an effort this was? Such an amazing devotional aspect to the culture of that time, to come and build this temple way up on the heights of this mountain with this astonishing view commanding the whole landscape there. In Athens, where we wound up our trip, this was, of course, the Parthenon, where everybody goes to see it. It was blistering hot. It was crowded. It was hard to get any photographs that didn't have hordes of other people in them. But nonetheless, it is a vista that everyone treasures when they make the trip to Greece. High on the hills overlooking this gigantic city of Athens, the modern city sprawling in all directions around you, is this reminder of the ancient history of this part of the world and how it has flourished and inspired us down through the ages. So that's our trip to Greece.
The summer vacation I'll never forget is my trip to New York State in the 1970s. One of the reasons I'll never forget this trip is because I never thought I would live in New York. But Dwight and I set out from Wisconsin in, there's a muscle car showing there with bikes and boxes and packed full. And as we often do and did on vacations, there's a tent and camping and all that gear. It's obvious we weren't backpacking at this time. Why do I remember this trip? Because we'd been married for about 5 years and we'd never taken a vacation. Well, we took our honeymoon for a weekend in the mountains close to the college where he had to get back to work. But other than that, we didn't take vacations. And so when we set out on this one to visit New York, it was interesting. One of the things that happened was we found lots of places to explore. This is in a park in New York. It's a place that I happen to love. You can see that it's Sam's Point and that there are ice chasms. And look at that stairway. I probably would not go down that stairway today if it's open still. I haven't been back to this park. But one of the things we did when we started sharing all of these times and feeling the awe involved in the nature settings that we were in was that we began to assess both our strengths and our weaknesses and talk, and we grew much closer as a couple. Here's the view from at the top where you go down to the ice caves, and there's another way down to the ice caves. It was really an adventure for us, And Dwight found out I didn't like to stand right at the edge, and you had to stand at the edge to go down. And so that was an interesting thing for us to learn about me. We also visited falls, both Niagara Falls, because you can't go to New York without including that in your trip. But it's amazing how many small falls and man-made falls we found on our trip. And the water, the sheer volume of water moving over the large, or the sounds of the water moving over the small, were motivational for us. They were exciting. Now we're going to go to Kit.
Good morning. We're looking at the shape of Canandaigua Lake, which is where I was born and where I lived for the first part of my life. Home is Canandaigua. Canandaigua is home. Life is a journey, and I moved several times. Next slide. Next slide. This is a sign that I went past several times a week, where I lived in Chula Vista in California. I spent 36 years in California, and I grew to love all the people. And I have to say that I think brown skin is beautiful. And I got to know many people in different situations. For instance, my students, when I was teaching at San Francisco State, many were speaking Spanish as well as English, and I felt sad that I didn't speak Spanish. Essential services is a term that is much on the news today. Essential services were by people speaking Spanish and having a heritage that was different than mine. Public transportation, every time I got on a bus or took any kind of transportation, most of the time I was a minority person. So I never had a problem. I grew to love the sound of language that I couldn't understand. When you go shopping in California, in Southern California, the signs of prices are generally in Spanish. So it's a note to think that when you are looking at grocery stores and the products that are in grocery stores, you know who's living in the neighborhood. I think that it was very educational for me to live in a place so different from where I grew up. However, thank you. This is Canandaigua Lake, and I had purchased a vacation home, which on Canandaigua Lake, and what I did was take spring and fall vacations. I would open up the cottage for renters and in the spring, and sometimes there would still be ice around the edges of the lake. And then I would go back in the fall and put the cottage to sleep. So I didn't move. I didn't take vacations that were for the weather. I took it for the place. Are you telling me I need to? Okay. I love Canandaigua. I'm so fortunate that my favorite vacation spot from California has now become my home again. So now we're looking at the view from the cottage that I purchased as a vacation place, and which now belongs to my sister. And I take daily trips to visit my vacation spot. I'm very happy that I moved to California and then came back home. I'm very fortunate that my favorite vacation spot has become my home again. Bye-bye.
And so here's the message in the sand. You've heard about our vacations and how you could almost call one of them a staycation now, staying in the familiar place for vacation. You've heard how vacation can be family events and affect family. You've heard about the awe that we feel in vacation with the places that we go, and that vacations can help us develop insight into who we are and who those closest to us are. So now we'll say goodbye and we'll join together in our last hymn, which is We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like the waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted, all those who mourn, and we'll give them gardens instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like the waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be the land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land with sisters and brothers, anointed by God. May them create peace, where justice shall roll down like the waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh,
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our heart until we are together again.
Thank you all for joining us for worship this morning, and for our wonderful speakers for sharing their stories. We invite you all to stay right here in this part of the call for coffee hour together. We won't be setting up those breakout meeting rooms. And also, I'd like to thank you all for hanging in with us as we work through the technical bits of Zoom. Probably by the time we get our handle on it completely, we won't need it anymore. And we really look forward to when we can